This guys, I'm back. I'm back with another one, and I know I've not been about, not been putting videos out, but I've been a little bit busy. I've had a lot going on, but you know, I am going to be putting more videos out now. I'm going to try at least get 2 out a week if I can. So my apologies. I know a lot of you do like content, so I am gonna possibly, like I say, try and get 2 videos out per week now. So if you guys could help me as well by liking, sharing, commenting, and just getting the algorithm to, you know, pump these videos out for us, and we should be all good. So, you know, I'm going to be looking at Bitcoin today. I'm going to be looking at the stock market, USDT dominance, and Bitcoin dominance. So yeah, let's get straight into it. Right. So we're having a little look at Bitcoin here. I'm on the weekly chart, and at the minute, Bitcoin currently is at the 200 EMA, around 69k-ish. So after Bitcoin came back up and tested this area here, just below that area, so we'll get a box. You know, that were a weekly level around there. What we used as prior support is now turning into a resistance zone. We had something pretty similar here. We had a support. It's turned into a technical resistance zone. And then if we go a little bit further down, we've got another zone here of around 49k, which is an area that I've been looking at for a while now. That area there for Bitcoin to potentially come down, do something like this, sweep into there, reclaim that zone, and then back up we go. For now, I really want to lose this next area here. I really want us to lose that for a confirmed breakdown into this zone here. There's so much inefficiency what happened with Bitcoin. You know, I heard a lot of shouting a while back, and they were like, oh, Bitcoin's never going to go back below 100k. Everybody started buying it around 100k, and look where they've ended up. You know, you've started buying it around 100k, around here. You know, you're down 40% ish in your investment, or because you're listening to the crowd, which is not a good thing to do. You know, if you want to trade, I would suggest learning how to trade before joining any sort of groups. The groups can be good. I'm not saying they're bad, but personally, if it were me, I'd learn how to trade before I thought, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing now. And then you join a group and end up getting wrecked. You know, it's just pretty similar here. Got another area that what a supporting zone turned into a resistance zone. Down she come. Supporting zone, resistance zone. Down she come. So you know, this could be where Bitcoin finally drops down. People think, no, I'm done with Bitcoin. Blah blah blah. The usual spiel that we hear, and then you end up getting, you know, you come back in a while and you're like, wow, I should have held it. You know, and Bitcoin's gone all the way back up to new all-time highs. You know, I do reckon we do somewhat along these lines, sweep in, reclaim, and then off to the races. That's my personal thought on it. You know, it's not going to happen overnight. but that's something that I'm looking at in Bitcoin to potentially, that's what I'd love to see. So if we look a little bit further down, I don't think we're going to get this far down personally, but what we do have in Bitcoin, we do have another supporting area around 30k, which never got tested. And if you just look at these prior runs, 11k never got tested either, which was a prior resistance. It never got took. But we did have another supporting zone here. We can have a little look. This area here could potentially be a nice supporting zone for Bitcoin where people are going to start to buy again around this area, which it has been tested, but you've got to play it by ear. You've got to play what you see on the charts. You can't just be like, oh, it's doing this, it's doing that. You've got to look what's actually going on in the charts. We also look at the major move that occurred with the volume profile. It allows it to come up. It's not coming up. Oh, yeah. Will it come up now? Yep. There we go. So here, there's a lot of volume in Bitcoin around this zone, what's been accumulating. So that could be a really nice supporting area. But as you've seen before, these supporting areas with the volume tend to turn into resistance areas. So if we do lose that and we do this, expect some sort of resistance here. And then we'll get the next move where we were very thin. The profile is very thin here. This is why, I'm looking at this zone here. It's a high volume zone where we could potentially find support. And if we don't, then we do have this volume zone here. And that's situated between 31-ish, 32 to around 25. Something like that. Anyway, that's what I'm looking at in Bitcoin at the minute. The whole area, grab the whole area and actually look at the whole move that occurred from the bottom, November 2022. We're in 2026. People were saying the 4-year cycle's dead. Me personally, looking at it right now, it doesn't look like the 4-year cycle's dead to me. But that might just be me. But like I say, this here is a major supporting area around 30k for Bitcoin at the minute. I was saying in the group that we're looking for something like this. Excuse me. The other day I was just pointing it out. I was looking for something like a retest of this zone, and then we can build into a short. Looking at potentially move down into there. People don't, want to hear that, but unfortunately, that's the way it goes in crypto. It's very volatile. So yeah, this could be, the make or break zone at the minute. There's a nice volume cluster there. Very nice volume cluster. But, if we have a look at the move down, we are creating volume there. we are losing that volume. Do expect if we drop through to trickle back to the volume and then off we go. Because we can just, we can do that with this initial run, which was September 20. It had the run up to 2021. That were on a year. Excuse me. That was only 1 year that we had that run. 2022. That was a 3-year run. This was slightly different. That run. Anyways, we'll get the, say March 20 the run started and it ended in 2021. It's still only a year. If you actually look where we came back to test, we tested that volume node there. We never came here. We never tested that 9K volume node. If we pull it to there, see how that volume started to develop around here, and then off it went. There wasn't a lot of resistance. Even when it came there, it chopped for a little bit, and then it broke out of that resistance zone, and then off it went. So, it's just food for thought, even if we just drag that over to there, to the top, from the bottom. We did have volume clusters around here. And if you just look at that little bump there, where it was here, and we have a little look at the bump, what's developing right here now, is this the same sort of bump? We wick down into it. Are we going to run back up to here from that little volume bump? There's a possibility that we could. That this is another scenario where we, if we come into here and then we get through there, hold that volume bump, and then, new all-time highs. But we will have to see, because I was pointing out previously, if you look at this move here, very similar to that move there. We had the correction from there to there, around 55%, around 32%, and then we had the major correction, which was 76%. So we've had that move. Have a little look. That's around 52%. So, I'm not counting Bitcoin out at the minute. But what I am saying is there is a potential of creating, a lower bottom here and taking out these potential lows that were left behind. So, I will be slowly building my position in here for my spot bags. So that's Bitcoin. That's what I'm looking at in Bitcoin. No trend lines, none of that, pretend stuff. I'm actually looking at real volume that's actually in the charts at the minute. So I'm going to go over and have a little look at the stock market next. So look, that little volume bump there. Could that be the savior for Bitcoin? We will have to see. S&P, it just keeps rocketing. There's, at the minute, there's no stopping it. It's a crazy move from the lows to where we are now. That's 2009. It's gone up nearly 1,000% since 2009. So if you put 1,000 into that times 1,000, you've got a lot of money, haven't you? We have had small corrections along the way. We had one here in 25, a nice 20% drop, got bought back up. And then we only had a 9% drop there for the rally. Generally, what you'll see with, you're looking at around 20-30% retracements. Have a little look. It literally retraced from to the scene of the crime where it actually broke out from. This never did. That was the breakout area. Never really retraced. Are we going to get this little small pullback here of around 8% before it rockets off again? Because just looking at the chart, there's at the minute there's no stopping it. I wouldn't like to stand in front of this currently, anyways, because it just keeps going to new all-time high after all-time high after all-time high. The dollar's just consolidating below here. We've had this before as well. We've had the consolidation below, the push further down, consolidation, push back down into towards this area here. Will we rally? If we have this push back down towards here, are we going to rally from there to new all-time highs? We will have to see. We're going to have to wait and see. NQ, exactly the same. Over the years, you've been best off positioned in NQ or in the S&P overall. It's weird because oil moved off and now it's consolidating like it did here. Wouldn't surprise me if we have another spike up in oil and then it drops down. Gold, at the minute, not a lot going on in gold. Consolidating at the highs, but even gold, over the years, you bought gold in 2020. You're up 30, is it 30 or 300? You're up nearly 300% in your gold. You've paid 1,400 for it, and you're up 300%. You're obviously going to be taking some sort of profit, aren't you? Same with silver, April 25, that was some rally that. Can't remember my old video, I was looking at around $30 for the pullback. Didn't get the buy anyways, it never came back, but 2022, nearly 600% on that. Absolute craziness. So yeah, I wouldn't want to stand in the way of these at the minute. Don't get me wrong, they can have corrections, but if you just look at the weekly charts, that's been the most volatile it's been for a while. Even here after that move up on silver, 166%, and then we had a while where it was just going sideways, 641 days, and then people capitulated, it dropped 30%. So we're going to do something similar here with gold and silver. Sideways, 159 days. That was 600 and something days, I think that was. 659. I just like to look at the history of these. So October 27, you know, potentially we're just going to get this to around October 27, flush, and then a move off. And I think that's going to happen with a lot of these markets. I really do think that's going to happen with a lot of these markets. At the minute, BTC dominance is absolutely pooing its pants really badly. You know, are we going to come back down to the lows in dominance? 57%. Are we going to drop even further? Because we've had, just looking at previous price history, we've had these moves. This is where, if we do get that move down into there, this is where your altcoins are going to rally. So we'll have to see. We will have to see. Let's get back to Bitcoin. And I'm just looking here at what I'd see what we've seen before on the move up. Just using this little price here in Bitcoin. We had that move sideways, 242 days. We've had this move sideways for 115 days. But if we look at the move here, so we had the sideways, the flush, and then it rallied. So if we actually look at this current move here, we've had sideways, the flush, and now we're going to get this aggressive move down. Just by looking at that previous price history here, how are we going to have that aggressive move down? Is it then going to, push back into there and then finish off bottoming out around these zones? We're going to have to wait and see, but just using previous price history, that's what I can see occurring. History don't repeat, as they say, but it generally rhymes. And if, we're looking at that move there, and then we go and look at this move here, we've had it on the way up, we're at the flush, move back up. On the way down, we're at the flush, move down, flush, move down. That's what I'm looking at. Sideways flush, up, sideways flush, up, all sideways, drop, sideways flush, drop, sideways flush, drop, sideways flush, drop. Is that what we're looking at? These potential there, what could occur with Bitcoin. But anyways, I am going to be looking at loading up round here and here on my Bitcoin. So that's all I've really got to say about it at the minute. And then you've got to look at USDT dominance as well. Just remove that. We've had the same sort of scenario in USDT dominance. Just a bit like what Bitcoin did. So we had the move up, the flush, the move up, the flush, the move up, the flush. And now we're going to get that final move up, which will send Bitcoin down into them zones. Possibly. Then we're going to get this little bit of a sideways action, drop down, flush. And it just generally looks like that's what we're going to do. Just by going over previous price charts. So that's my thought on it anyways. So I'm going to get off anyways, and I will catch you in the next one. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, guys. Get my videos out there, share them for me, and I will catch you in the next one. Happy trading, guys.